We are live, Arun.
All right, excellent. So I guess we're going to be started. So would I be having um, so good evening to is it live, right? I'm assuming so. Yeah. So good evening to everyone. Very warm welcome wherever you are. So today's session we are going to be evaluating the chances of admissions to master's programs. So we have a lot of MBA applicants, but we also have master's applicants, especially people interested in MIM or masters in management programs. And I believe I have two such people who I'm going to be kind of talking about what their profile is. And what I will also try to do is perhaps give an overall framework so that anyone who's listening to this, it's not just about me evaluating them, but I'm also going to be giving you a framework, giving you a rubric of sorts so that you can do a self assessment while I'm taking specifics from these two cases. So I would imagine that at this point we would have someone join me. Yep. So I have Nippon over here. So welcome, Nippon.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. And also hello to Abhishek.
Hello, sir.
Great. So I guess we will start with Nippon first. So Abhishek, you can maybe put yourself on mute, and
Yeah.
once we're done with Nippon, I could kind of come back. So great. So let's go through your profile, Nippon. Why don't you just walk us through your profile and tell us what's been your story, where are you come from, and what's your
Okay, so I'm a BCom honors graduate from India, passed out 2020 only with a good GPA, 8.3 GPA. I'm working currently with a startup known as Easy to Pitch as a market research and data analyst. I have had past experiences in internship with Sheila Power and Movie Sizzlers, which I worked in marketing mainly, and I'm planning to take my GMAT in February. Uh, And my long-term goals are to work in big four consultancy firms or in startups, which are I have inclination towards startups. So that's that.
all right? And your target master's programs are from HEC, ESCP, ESSEC,
Exactly.
INSEAD, NPS. Okay,
Hmm.
all right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is for everyone who's kind of hearing this, um, you know, one thing that most people would like to know, and the reason I'm giving that background is at CrackVerbal, I've worked with both students and I've also worked with the admission committees who while we talk to these schools, while we talk to especially people who have both the MBA and the masters, what is it that they are looking at, correct? So you could look at it as a framework which has 5 factors, and let's go through each factor one by one. And you could give your self-assessment, or you could think through what is it that we can do to improve across these 5 parameters. Okay, so I'm going to have
Hmm.
5 parameters that we're going to pick. So let's look at what are these 5 parameters. How would you measure up on that, and what is it that we can do to improve? So the first parameter, Nipun, is going to be a lot of master's programs, though you are picked Europe, but generally they expect that students who come from India, they are able to hit the academic course load and they are able to shine during the 1 or 2 years of their master's programs, right?
Hmm.
Now, you did mention about the college, you mentioned about the top 10, but I want to know if you are okay, what is the college? What tier is that college? What would it be, a national ranked college, or where would you place your college?
I'm aiming for Tier 1 college or Tier 2 college max. Like I
Your
want to go to
your
best college.
graduation. Sorry, we are looking at your profile now. So this is what
Uh-huh.
you have done. Where you are aspiring
Hmm.
for are the schools that you have mentioned. The
Hmm.
graduation, you did your BCom, but you have not mentioned
Hmm.
the name of the college. Something tells me that the reason you did not mention it is perhaps, so if you can just tell me where do you rate your college, or where do you rank your college?
Okay, so my college is in Delhi. It's GGS IPU, like you have heard, IP University in Delhi. So I'm graduated from the university.
Got it. So why I'm saying this also, Nipun, is in terms of context, right? When a
Mm-hmm,
B school looks at class rank, when it looks
mm-hmm,
at GPA, it looks at it in terms of context of the college, context of how difficult it is for that program, and so on and so forth, right? So that's one important aspect. So though I see that from an academics perspective, you're a top 10, but then the context of that top 10 is in the specific program and the specific college that you went to, correct?
yeah.
My take would be GMAT score is GMAT or GRE, whatever you decide. But if you do GMAT, for example, I would say that given your profile, a competitive score should be in the 720, 730 range. I would say starting at a 720, 730 range, which probably is going to be a split of quant 4950 and a verbal of at least a 38 or so, correct? So that is the kind
Yeah.
of combination, that's the kind of score that you probably need to be looking at because a 50 38, for example, will give you about a 730. So I would definitely try to, strengthen my academic part, right? Like in your case, the academic part, I would strengthen it with the GMAT score, right?
Yeah. I'm planning for
Uh,
GMAT only. So I'm planning for 720 around here.
Great, great. So with that, what happens is I'm able to put things in context, right? So a 720, 730, no matter what schools say, it gives them a confidence that this person can at least manage the academic workload because that's one thing. So that's the first deal, which is from an academics perspective. Now, coming to WorkX, you graduated in
2020.
2020. And
Yeah.
how long has your stints been?
Sorry.
How long has each of your tenure that you worked
Okay.
at the companies, how long have they been?
So marketing strategist for Sheetha Power has been around 3 months. November, December, January. I have joined Easy to Pitch in February 1st, like just 2 days back or 1 day back. Yeah.
Mhm.
Content marketing has been for around 6 months. It's
Got
the
it.
whole lockdown period.
Got it.
Yeah.
What in your mind could be a potential? So, this is the way I look at it. The way I would look at it is how can you make yourself the easiest choice for the B school, right? So, we are
Mhm.
trying to think from their perspective, right? Like, what could be
Mhm.
a potential? So, the way I see it is why 3 months, why 6 months, why not continuity?
Okay, so Sheetha Power is a marketing strategist, which are working. It's like an NGO, right? So they assigned me. It's an internship. It was an internship actually, marketing strategist. So
Okay,
it was around 3 months, and
got it.
then I got a job at Easy to Pitch. So I
Got it.
had to switch. Yeah, and these two
Got it.
were internships. This is a job which I'm working currently.
Perfect. And I'm assuming that you're going to be in that job till you get. So I'm assuming if you're taking the
Yeah,
GMAT in February, when are you
till
planning
the
to apply?
I was going for R3, but I got a job and everything is like going really fast. So I will be applying for R1. So till the time I get an admission, I would be enrolled in this job only.
So here is the deal with work experience, right? People tend
Mhm.
to misread this. People tend to make it into a quantitative game, whereas it is actually a qualitative game. So if you
Mhm.
are able to spend enough time at easy to pitch, and if you are able to
Mhm.
showcase, just to understand, is this company like funded? What's the size? What's the scale of this company? The one that you're going to
So the
join.
company was founded. Actually, the company is easy to pitch as a startup. It helps other
Right.
startup in making a pitches. Like if you have a startup, like if I have a startup, you want to get funding from other people, from VCs, from
Right.
other banks and everything. So we get them the pitch, give them their pitch, make sure that they are getting enough funding. So it's like that.
Got it.
what my role is, do the market research for that firm. Like if you have a firm, you come to me, I will make the whole market research where the product is, what are the
So
possibilities,
Nippon, just to
how it
kind
does
of
everything.
clear this, you're still to join. I just wanted to get a sense. See, I'll tell you now what the problem is. I'm the B School AdCom, correct?
Hmm.
How do I
Hmm.
know this is a genuine, legit startup? How do I know it is not like my friend and like three friends and a dog who started something in
No,
Kormangla,
it
right?
started. It
And
started in it started in 2017 only. It started in 2017, and in India, like during the lockdown period, they got funding, so they are expanding their business.
great. You mentioned funding, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I
Hmm.
wanted to hear, right? So they have gotten funding and they are on a
Hmm.
growth path, correct? So the
Yeah.
whole focus is to show that this is not a startup that is. So you also have to understand that today startup for B schools, the word startup is
Hmm.
actually a dangerous word because they don't know whether a lot of applicants, because I have seen tons of applications, especially from a city like Bangalore, where people claim that they have worked in startups, but I'm just telling you the reality, right? I'm not trying to dissuade you on that. That you
Yes, sir.
need to prove that you got a legit startup, and that
Hmm.
your role, and I'm assuming that you're going to be there for at least about a year. You
Hmm.
have been
Yeah, yeah.
able to make progress, and you have been able to. I think that's a very, because I see that as one other thing, because you've been in a couple of internships. Do you have
Hmm.
any experience while you are in college? I would definitely showcase that over here, correct? So I would also
Hmm.
use any experience of working internship I had at college time also as part of my work ex. But
Hmm.
sustain in this startup for at least about a year for them to get a sense of you as a professional, correct?
Hmm.
Another 3 months, 6 months will not be very helpful. So just wanted to kind
Okay.
of keep that in mind.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
going to now jump to one more factor. So we spoke about academics, we spoke about work ethics. I'm going to pick the third factor, which is clarity of what you want to do. So just wanted to understand you. So your long-term goal is startup, and short-term
Hmm.
goal is consulting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
But
specific?
like so, a long-term goal is startup because I'm inclined towards startup. Like this Shida Power was a startup. It's a startup. It was founded in 2020. So they're working for
And
women empowerment.
21, your
So,
long-term goals are just that, right? It's everybody says
yeah, I
nine
want to.
of 10 people say startup.
Yeah, yeah, I'm inclined towards startup actually.
Right.
I
Support.
have supported my friends in startup, and Easy to Pitch is also a startup. We are helping other startups. So it's basically like an
Correct.
ecosystem.
Correct. But I
Yeah.
just want you to understand that we are looking at it from a B school perspective. How
Uh,
do I separate a Nippon from 100 other people who are all claiming that my long-term goal is to be a, because that's the easiest thing to say, correct?
mm-hmm,
What they are
mm-hmm,
thinking is like why you want to get into a startup, and this could be something that could come in at a later point, maybe in your interview, maybe at some point. But I wouldn't be bothered too much about your long term goal. I would actually be bothered more about your short term goal, which is to get into consulting, correct?
mm-hmm,
What exactly would you be doing in a MBB kind of work is something that you need to get more clarity on. um,
okay.
what is usually given? Are you going to join them at an analyst level? Are you going to join them at an associate level? Right? Um,
Mm-hmm,
and having that clarity, here is one tip that I would offer you, Nipun, is try to reach out to current students or alums who
mm-hmm,
are having a similar profile as yours, who
okay.
have graduated from one of the programs that you have mentioned and are
Mm-hmm,
currently working in what you want as your short-term goal. So if you are going to able to get me Nippon Part 2, okay, who has done his BCom, who has,
mm-hmm,
maybe a year or two's experience, got into one of
mm-hmm,
these programs and ended up at a McKinsey Bain or a BCG,
mm-hmm,
right?
okay.
And what I would also consider, because see, clarity of goals is something that a lot of schools want, because they want to make sure that a person joining the course is coming with
Mm-hmm,
clarity of what he wants to achieve in life to some extent. See, at your age, people are not. That's why I said the long term goal is going to be hazy, correct? But with the
Yeah.
short term, if you are able to kind of drop names, if you are able to say, for example, if one of the schools, let's say MBB doesn't come, right? But there is some other
Mhm.
company. I see that you are also okay with a Deloitte or a KPMG or a E&Y,
Mhm.
right? So maybe you also need to optimize looking at the kind of consulting companies that come for each school. But
Mhm.
I would, if I were you, along with GMAT, I would get onto LinkedIn and start doing that research, getting that clarity on your post MBA goals. What will you do in consulting? According to me, is going to be the third thing that will help you set your profile apart.
Okay.
Right? So just to recap, we are at the end of about 15 minutes. So just to recap, one, you really need to get a 720 plus for them to get
Mhm.
a context, right? I mean, a high score, right? I'll just put it that way.
Mhm.
Second is your work X. You need to be showing the kind of company that you're working is a legit startup, and that if you also have been on that growth path with them, and
Mhm.
obviously it's going to reflect. For example, is
Progressing
your
with them.
recommendation correct? Is your recommendation going to come from one of the co-founders? Correct. What do they have to say about your work? So on and so forth.
Mhm. Getting it.
And the third thing is the clarity of goals. So when you write your statement of purpose, when you write your why, master's essays, and even when you
Mhm.
interview, you need to have a very clear plan that says, this is my goal, this is where I am, and this is how a master's program is going to give me the right skill sets in order to get to my goals.
So basically, getting clarity on my goals, and I had to put it in essay so that the B schools are
Correct.
really sure, like where I am, where I want to be, and how I'm going to make sure I get there.
Correct. So if I were to put it in the form of questions, I would probably give you a bunch of questions, right? So the
Mhm.
first question is going to be, what is exactly my goal? What is my career vision, right? So why do
Mhm.
you want to do consulting? How is consulting going to help you with your long-term goal, right? So many a times, one of the things that consulting has as an advantage is that consulting gives you a multi-sectoral approach. It gives you a problem solving framework, right? And
Mhm.
it gives you, one of the things you would have heard is the first principles approach. So a lot of these things are eventually very very useful toolkit for an entrepreneur, which is why you see a lot of ex consultants getting into entrepreneurship, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In my
So
internship
you need
also, we are like just solving the problem. Why? We're just searching for like why you want to do this? Why you have a startup? That's the first thing your investor asks. Why we should invest, and we are searching for that why through that thing, through that startup. So yeah.
So I want to know your career plan. Question number one. Question number two, what transferable skills do you bring to the table for
Hmm.
me to believe that you will do a great job in that position? Correct. So
Okay.
your experience that you have, you'll have to showcase that I will be a great consultant. Third, why do you need a master's? Why do you need the education? Right? Why do you
Mhm.
need an MI, MS degree? Right?
Okay.
Um, Fourth would be, what do you bring, or why that specific school, right? Why not any other school? Why that specific school?
Okay.
Fifth would be, what do you bring to the table? What is unique that you will contribute to the class? So I think if you keep these five questions in mind, your SOP process will also be a lot easier. What's your career plan? What transferable skills you bring? Why will an MBA help you? Why this particular institute? And why you will contribute to the rest of the class, right? Five questions.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions, Nipun?
No, sir, no. So I just literally explained it so well. I'm thorough with that plan and everything. I just let's ask
Excellent.
one question.
Sure.
Shall I get the LOR? Like we have to submit a letter of recommendation. So should I be getting that from the co-founder? Easy to pitch. That would help, right?
See, my take is that how many members in the team?
Like I'm the head right now. I'm the head for my team, and there are like around 4 people in my team. So like, there are different departments, and there are two co-founders.
The company, how many people in the company?
Total, there are 30.
Okay. Maybe you need to play it well. And I think, as far as letter of recommendation is concerned, I
Mhm.
think sometimes, we tend to complicate it. If you go and ask for very genuine advice and say, hey, I'm applying to a program and this is what I think, get it from someone who knows you well. The last thing you want is, I said a co-founder because in a 30-member team, I'm assuming you would be able to create the impact for the co-founder to write a LOR for you, correct? But if it is
Okay.
not the case, let's say for whatever reason you end up not working with him closely, he doesn't
Mhm.
know who you are, then my suggestion would be to get it from someone else in the team who perhaps has a better sense of who you are. But I would probably say, given the context of the
Mhm.
startup, a co-founder level would definitely be better than getting a colleague or getting a senior, especially if it's a smaller
Okay.
startup.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Get it.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have time for like 1 year or so. So I get in touch with her. Like,
Excellent. So I think with a good GMAT score, all the schools that you're
mhm.
looking at, with a good GMAT score, with your experience showing up, and with slightly more defined, sharp messaging on what
Mhm.
you want to do, I think you have a very good chance. So wish you all the best with your applications, Nippon. I hope you're
Thank
able
you, sir.
to do well. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great. So I'm going to now get Abhishek. So Abhishek, thanks again. Abhishek, you can just walk me through your profile, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm from engineering background. Currently, I'm in my undergrad, final year of my undergrad. Right now, I have CGPA of 7.2, and I like studying in a tier one college in India.
Right.
I have interned for 4 months in a startup as a finance intern there. And also, I did like in my during my undergrad, I did some entrepreneurial projects with the help of my economics professor. I pitched my ideas to various investors, but was somehow like rejected. I learned that I lacked some basic business, sorry, the industry standard business skills, business communication skills, I mean, and also the general management skills. I thought I could achieve more if I learned general management principles, and I chose to do the MIM. And also currently I'm working on a project called FinSec. It is a finance project. Though I'm from engineering background, again from guidance from my economics professor, I'm currently working on it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I am going to go back to my 5 point parameter or five points that I mentioned. While I was talking to Nipun, I mentioned, and Abhishek, maybe you can just put yourself on mute because there is an ambient background noise that is coming. Um, yeah, Abhishek, you can just put yourself on mute and maybe while you speak at that point, you can unmute because there is an ambient. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Abhishek, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the same thing for what I said for Nipun. So I'm going to give you two more things. So I told him about ACAD's work experience and clarity of goal. So in your case also, I'm going to be looking at the same three factors, but I'm going to add two more factors. Okay. And I want you to think about those two factors. So the first factor that I'm going to put is, what has been your leadership experience? And a lot of people have different definitions of leadership, right? Like, what is leadership? The best way to define leadership, especially when you are in college and when you're still starting your career, is to say that I did something over and above what was expected of me. Whether that succeeded, whether that got rejected, that is secondary, right? What is important is that you created a business plan and you actually went, and if I were to understand, you presented it or pitched it to someone, correct? That, according to me, is a thing that you should definitely highlight. Leadership is people who go over and above their circle of influence or circle of concern. Correct. So I think your B plan rejection, and I would also like you to maybe kind of think about taking that business plan, working on the feedback that was given to you. So even if, let's say, at some point in the whole B school admission process, maybe not in the essays, but at the interview stage, someone were to say, walk me through your business plan, you should be able to come with a solid plan, right? So because the quality of your business plan will give me a sense of the quality of your thinking, correct? And that, according to B schools, is a huge plus point when it comes to your profile, right?
Yeah.
um, Now, here is the thing that I'm kind of maybe struggling, but you need to help me on this, which is if I were to assume that Abhishek, you are competing with someone, and I'm just going to make this hypothetical. I don't want you to feel, that I'm kind of measuring you against anyone else.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
yeah, this is what I usually tell people who work with me on applications, which is try to draw a straw man figure, just a straw man figure, and let us call this guy something else. Let's call him Abhijit. Okay. Now let us assume that Abhijit were to compete with you, right? Let us just look at some of the factors. So I'm going to look at your ACADS. So NIT Goa 7.4 GPA, decent, correct? You also know this, like it's a decent thing, but maybe if I were to pitch you against NIT Trichy Computer Science 8.5 GPA, let's assume hypothetical, correct? The GRE at a 317 with a Q167, which is a great score. I would ask if there is a way for you to improve the verbal score, which is at a 150. Is that something that have you thought about? Is that something that you
Yeah, I thought about it, but like I decided to like highlight other aspects of my profile rather than doing it again.
perfect?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm just trying to put that in context, saying that, with your undergrad and your GRE score, right? So that's as far as ACATS is concerned. Work experience right now, there is none, but I see that you've been an intern and you have, kind of helped. So just try to understand, while you are an intern, how did you reduce cost of goods sold by 5%?
Yeah. So I was part of a negotiate like the operations team with the suppliers of the company. Like it was an e-commerce firm selling groceries. So I done multiple visits to the suppliers and like strike the different type of deal with them, a fixed price deal with them. In that deal, like the price of a commodity will remain constant irrespective of the market's price. Like for say the price of onion is 10 rupees per kg now, and we strike a deal for 15 rupees per kilo, it will be constant till we renegotiate it.
Something
So
like a futures market, like you kind of
yeah,
lock a price at.
yeah. So I have done it with almost five suppliers, and because of that the cost of goods sold has reduced
Got
by
it.
5%. Yeah.
Got it. So I think definitely getting one letter of recommendation from Nimble Cart, which kind of validates, because again, as I told Nippon, the same thing I would offer you, Abhishek, which is, they believe you, but obviously getting someone else, especially what happens is when someone is working in a role and he has a certain years of experience, we know that there is certain things that the job demands, correct? So if you have been in a job which has a very clear job description, it's a different thing. So for example, if an applicant is working and he says that I'm a software engineer at IBM, right? You kind of know what a software engineer at IBM would do. I have no idea, or the B school has no idea what a finance intern at Nimblecart would do, right? So that's
Right,
your
right.
job to ensure that you educate the role and give them some proof of that, right?
Yeah, understood.
Um, I already mentioned about leadership, which is the B plan. I'm going to now come to clarity of goals, which is the fourth, the third, or the fourth factor, whatever you look at. Now, I'm just looking at it. It says corporate finance consultant. So, one thing that I have not been able to wrap my head around is you don't
Yeah.
have a CFA or you don't have any CPA, no other.
No,
So,
no,
where
I
is
don't
your
have.
finance knowledge?
Uh, as I mentioned before, like I have pitched my ideas to many investors. So feedback I received was my plan lacked financial forecasts in it. So like eager to know what a financial forecasting is, I like did a mini courses in Coursera regarding corporate finance and financial forecasting.
Hmm,
And in the process, I like loved corporate finance and learned more about it.
got it.
Yeah.
So the way I would look at your goals is in my mind. So just try to understand. You said Fortune 500 company, then you have put Deloitte, PwC, McKinsey. These are consulting firms, right? They are not Fortune 500 companies. So you want to work in a consulting firm or a Fortune 500 company?
No, the goal I have is to work in a global 500 company because what I feel is every global 500 company is in need of financial consulting. So I like I will target the companies which have an international market. And specifically speaking of this Deloitte, PwC, McKinsey, and EY, they have international clients. So financial consultant at these firms would like expand the horizon more.
Right. So, Abhishek, as I told Nippon, I think it's important for you to maybe spend time on LinkedIn, correct? And try to understand thing on your post MBA goal, because what I feel is you have mentioned consulting companies and then you have mentioned Fortune 500 companies. Just to tell you, a consulting company may consult a Fortune 500 company, but when you say a Fortune 500 company, the name that will come will not be Deloitte, PwC, and all. These are all consulting auditing firms, correct? Now, one thing about post MBA goals is to remember three E's. Okay, it's easy to remember it that way about your post MBA goal: educate, expose, experience. Educate yourself. You have already taken a Coursera course. Excellent. Try to see if you can take more courses. Try to visualize in your mind that your potential competitor who has a 320 on GRE, who has, perhaps graduated from a slightly higher rated college with maybe higher GPA. One thing that he cannot kind of take away from you is your, your knowledge that you have accrued, the clarity that you have with your post MBA goal. So take more courses, educate. Second, experience, right? So you have already gained experience. Fantastic. I would suggest try to keep getting more such experiences. As I suggested, Nippon, try to see if you are now able to also, since you are a fresher, people are expecting that you don't have 5 years experience, right? So don't worry on that. But wherever you are working, focus on the quality. Focus. I like the fact that you put, you are able to reduce 5% with your negotiation skills. Get me more stories. I want to hear more such things, right? So I think that's fantastic. Um, I also think, the last part, which is expose yourself. Go to LinkedIn, and as I said, you have said that you want to do your MIM from HEC, ESSEC, and all of these schools, Duke, Ross. Try to go to LinkedIn. Try to see the profile. Try to see what kind of companies they are getting in. Try to understand what is the actual challenge, right? Now, when you say corporate finance, you will, I mean, as you do your research, you will realize is a vast field, correct? And you are going to be competing with a chartered accountant, someone who went, did his BCom, who spent 3 years grueling articleship, right? And if he is going to come and say, I know finance, correct? Why would, So I think it's very important for us to know a little bit more about the role we are getting in. I'm happy for you that you have found that spark which says maybe finance is your calling. But my advice is don't commit too early, right? Consulting is very broad. When you walk in as a consultant, you can solve multiple problems. It could be from a finance perspective, from a strategy perspective, from a go to market perspective, from a sales strategy perspective. So there are various problems that you can solve. Whether you want to solve the problem of corporate finance is something that I would really want you to think about. And as I said, educate, expose, experience, right? Learn more about your post MBA goal, because otherwise what will happen is in an interview or in your SOP, correct? The why you want to do a master's may actually not be congruent to your goals, correct? So they are saying, like what I told Nippon, if you heard the questions, first question, what's your goal? What was my second question? What is the transferable skill that you are bringing to that particular goal, correct? So that's the question I think in your case will become important for you to answer. Make sense?
I get it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So I have one bonus point for both of you, which is we spoke about. I'm just going to go back to my 5 point system again: academics, work experience. I spoke about leadership. I spoke about clarity of goals. But here's the fifth one. The fifth one is there any other story about you that would make you interesting? Now, this X factor could come from diversity, it could come from your background, it could come from your extracurriculars, it could come from, let's say, a hobby, right? I'll just give an example. So, one of our students who had gone for an MIM at London Business School, his part time, like he loved playing a musical instrument, he was part of a band, and he did not have any NGO experience, correct? He played for his rock band in college. He went for inter college fests. He got some prize there. He used to, even on weekends, used to be jamming. So people are not expecting that you always do NGO work, but anything that is a constructive utilization of your time, where they are saying what else do you bring to the table. So that's one thing that I would like both of you to think about, in terms of what else could I say which could interest them, right?
Hmm. So actually, I have played football in my school, in my college, and I have won many prizes. I have participated in competitions, so I can put that in extracurriculars.
Yeah, correct. Now, one thing that I would like you to also know is it is not the achievement. It is
Mm-hmm.
not the fact that you played for, a
Mhm.
European club. The learning that you learn being in a team, because essentially
Mm-hmm.
football is a team sport, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You
Team sport,
learn
yeah.
how to communicate, how to work with a team. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
skills that you also bring to the corporate world, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
are able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
tie those with who you are, rather than saying
Connect,
ki, I
basically connect.
correct,
Okay, got it. So that's what I'm trying in my, in my startup team. I'm like making
right,
them, work as a team because I'm the
right,
team leader for that. So I'm trying to, just make sure that we work as a team so that we achieve the goals which we have for long term and for short term.
right. And I think in terms of the overall thing, like both of you, in terms of your experience and work, so I just want to just tell one thing which, and this is for general for people looking at a master's program, is they feel that I also have to write a lot of things in my work experience, which has to show that I had a leadership position or I had authority. The schools are not looking at it. They are saying, as an individual, if you are able to do well, if you are able to work, if you are able to show results, then you don't necessarily need to showcase management, because sometimes what happens is, we, especially with less experience, what we try to do is those 3 to 6 months experience, we try to show that we were like, Rambo. We went and we fought single-handedly and we did a lot of things. So also kind of keep that in mind, that they understand that you are working in a larger team context, and it's perfectly
Mhm.
okay for you to say that this was something that was assigned to me, or something that was delegated to
Okay.
me, right?
Yeah.
Anything else, Abhishek?
Yeah, I wanted to know like which aspect to like should I talk about the long term goals or not? because I was going to
Hmm.
mention uh, I mentioned before about my failed business plan. So I was about to mention in my SOP about the long-term goals and the ideas that I have in my mind. So should I build up upon that?
When I hear a 21-year-old talk about his long-term goals, I see someone who has a lot of energy, a lot of passion, and people love that, right? That you have the energy and passion and you want to change the world and all of that. But they are going to take it with a pinch of salt because they also know that yes, this is what you are saying at this stage in your career, but please go ahead and talk about your vision, right? Talk about how you want to change the world. But I'm just saying that to some extent having a focus on your shorter term goal may actually be more helpful, more beneficial, because
True.
what I see in your case, especially Abhishek, is your shorter
Yeah.
term goal perhaps requires a little bit more sharpening, more specificity.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we will take a couple of audience questions. If you guys are done, I think Abhijit, you can maybe ROI of an MBA and MS. I actually, just before I saw that, I actually had that you know question on this. So if you ask me, why did B schools really come up with this concept of even a master's? The whole idea behind that is that along with an MBA degree, they also saw a need for young professionals, people who had just graduated from college. This is similar to what happens in India, where we have a lot of PGP and PGDM courses which are for fresh graduates. The same need was seen in the Western market in US and Europe. And that is how they came up with the MIM. Couple of things that go for MIM, if you ask me, if especially if you have fewer years experience, MIM brings you a great deal, right? The tuition fees are going to be lower than an MBA, correct? Second, you also get a chance to get scholarships in the form of teaching assistantship or graduate assistantship, which usually is not in the case of an MBA program. So definitely a MIM or a master's course vis-a-vis an MBA offered by the same college is going to be relatively less expensive. The one thing that works in the favor of MBA, especially since you are telling me you have 10 years experience, is that MIM programs are typically meant for people with either no experience or just about a year or so's experience, right? So what you would need to think is, if the average age of the class is 22, and if let's say someone is 32, will that person fit into such a class, correct? Whereas in the case of an MBA, I think the spread is more diverse. So you would be surprised to find someone who's perhaps even older than you in an MBA class, but not so much in the case of an MIM program. The other thing that an MIM program has as a slight disadvantage, because people don't have as much experience, typically if you see the kind of job roles that are offered to MIM will be slightly more entry level, whereas for an MBA candidate, the same company will offer something slightly higher. For example, in a consulting company, as an MIM, you could join as an analyst, but as a MBA, you would probably go in as a associate. Correct? So that's what I would say, which is, with your experience, maybe an MBA is better. Having said that, all things being equal, if you are a fresher, you have less than 2 years experience, MIM gives you terrific ROI even over an MBA. Yeah. And one more question, last one. All right. Left my job, traveled for a few months, and finally started focusing on my GMAT prep. Will this gap hamper my application process as I left? Okay, so here is what B schools want. B schools want you to chew gum and walk at the same time. They expect you to multitask. So think about it this way: most of the people applying along with you have a full-time job or are a full-time student, and they are able to manage with their academic workload or with their corporate workload, they are able to manage that GMAT prep. So for you to say that I quit my job for a GMAT would potentially raise some red flags. Instead of that, what I would suggest is, perhaps be a little true to yourself and say, what is it that you did not perhaps like about that job? Maybe the travel was a process of introspection for you. Maybe it highlighted certain things for you that made you realize that you want to go in for a master's or an MBA degree. Correct. So I would rather use the gap to say that it was a process of self, introspection. But having said that, in order to, as I said earlier, you want to make sure that the B school is not having a problem saying, why is she, is she fickle? Is she, going to be sticking to a career? Well, if she comes and takes a master's or an MBA from my school, will she continue to work? What are the chances she will not? So if you are able to kind of maybe get back to some kind of active employment, so do not apply while you are still unemployed. If you can have something on your resume to say, currently I have a job, but hey, I had a gap. And there are plenty of people who apply with a gap. Sometimes they are laid off. With COVID, we have seen there has been a lot of things. So don't worry about the gap, but please make sure you don't put GMAT as your reason, number one. And number two, make sure that you get back so that at the time of application, you have an employer. All right. So great. That's what I had. I guess we are done with the questions. And okay, so I got one more. So I'm going to take one more question. The question is, if you have been out of formal education for many years, over 10, but working, but have now just completed a chartered accountancy and want to do an accounting and finance MBA, MA, MBA are very expensive. Okay, so you want to do a master's, you don't want to do an MBA, is what I understand. So, a couple of things. The first thing is I see a great comeback, right? I see that you have been out of formal education, you spent 10 years working, but now for you, and this is what I say, right? Like, once you grow older, when you got family, you got a bunch of things happening in your life, it's no longer how it was when you were in college. So that's something that is going to interest me, right? Like, this is a person who was able to fight that, was able to kind of put her best foot forward, and was able to get that chartered accountancy. So I think that's going to be something. Uh, Along with that, having a GMAT or a GRE score, whatever is required for your master's degree, would also help supplement that. Correct. So that's what I would say. But I hope I answered the question, because I had to understand the question from the subtext, but I hope I was able to answer that. All right. Great. So I guess, Abhijit, we would be done for the day. Thank you very much. And if you liked what you heard, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We also offer free profile evaluation. So in case you are interested to dig a little deeper, you want someone from my team to sit with you and have a conversation on what you have done, what are the schools you looking at, please feel free. There is a link that Abhijit would be sharing. So make sure that you fill it up. And as I said, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and also on our social media on YouTube. We put up a lot of content, especially around the whole MBA and the masters, and how to get there. So there is a ton of content that you can look up. Right? Thank you so much for your time. And I guess, Abhijit, we will be wrapping it up. Have a great night and great day wherever you are. Yeah, thank you.